Music has always been a big part of my life. I listen to it, I made a living with it. Quite frankly, I miss it. That's because I really haven't had much to do with it, other than listening to it for the last few years. The last time I played music in front of an audience was in the early 80s. My earliest memory of a song was when I was, well, I don't know how old I was, but I remember the song.
Love and marriage, love and marriage.
I also remember
I love you, a bushel and a peck.
another piece of music that grabbed me even as a child was from a movie called The High and Mighty. Now, I couldn't tell you why I liked that melody back then, but I did, and I remember it fondly today. I've always wondered why and how we get attached to a special type of music. Before I ever got into my teens, I tried trumpet, then trombone, and finally settled on drums. In 1958, I was in the Bedford High School marching band, and that's where I met a lifelong friend, Richard Perlee. He played trombone. We used to hang together at his house because he had a good record player. He was into big bands and I went along for the ride, about a quarter century behind the times. We liked to listen to really good music, and what was coming out of radio in those days didn't quite cut it for us. Like Chuck Berry. His guitar was always out of tune. Around that time was a guy who played piano.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much love drives a man insane.
Now, there's a good story about Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry. They were playing a show and got into an argument about who would go on last. That was the place for the stars closing the show. Chuck Berry won the argument, and Jerry Lee went on in front and rocked the house when he poured lighter fluid on the piano and lit it. And then he said to Chuck,
Follow that, killer.
well, that was from the movie Great Balls of Fire with Randy Quaid. Maybe it happened and maybe it didn't, but at least it makes a good story. Anyway, Richard and I weren't into that type of music, so we listened to Duke Ellington. And Dave Brubeck. And especially Louis Armstrong. Most musicians today will admit that Louis Armstrong really set the mold for modern music. He could play and he could sing.
Well, hello,
Look who's here.
Dolly. This is Louis.
Hello, Louis.
Dolly.
Most folks thought that Louis' singing was just a joke, but it wasn't. If you have an ear and you really listen, he never sang out of tune. He was always spot on. It must have been Mr. Armstrong that drew me to an early love of Dixieland music. When I was in college, I played at a place called the Royal Oaks in Bloomington, Indiana. Besides the beer, there was some really good music, and that was because a lot of the professors from the School of Music sat in. My buddy Richard played trombone. We had a blast. I loved movie music too. I had dreams of writing music for the movies, music like Miklóšic's Ben-Hur. When I heard that in a theater, I literally flowed down the aisle. And there was Ron Goodwin's score from 633 Squadron. Of course, John Williams wears the crown today for movie music. I was working in radio at the time, so playing music on an instrument instead of a turntable was only part-time. It wasn't until 1970 that I put together a little lounge act and went on the road. Frankly, I wasn't that good a drummer, so I never thought about becoming a star or recording. Besides, our music was a quarter century too late. The only recordings I have of my group are on old reel-to-reel tapes, and I guess I need to get them digitized someday. It was in the mid-60s and 70s that I started to appreciate the people that were playing music and playing it well. Booker T and the MGs. I went to school with Booker T. The Righteous Brothers.
What would you think if I sang out a tune? Would you stand up and
The Beatles.
on me?
Joe Cocker did that one well too.
Lend me your
And in the 70s, Elton John.
'Cause I live and breathe this Philadelphia freedom.
Leonard Skinner, some Southern rock.
Sweet home Alabama.
Alabama and a little country.
If you're gonna play in Texas, you gotta have a fiddle in the band.
The Eagles
Welcome to the Hotel California.
and Chicago. Now those guys had some musical chops. One of the things I really liked was Close Harmony from the Beach Boys. To the Four Freshmen. Of course, they were a little earlier, 40s and 50s earlier.
Yeah, your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through.
I've always said that after the 70s, well, that's really when the music died. Well, I hope you enjoyed this music, even if there were only a few bits and pieces. I'm very lucky. I love all types of music. Well, not so much Italian opera or rap.
You got the fireman coming, bringing that heat with the CD. When they see me, wanna be me, better believe it.
I shouldn't say I don't like rap, I just don't understand it. I'm trying not to get into trouble with YouTube or ASCAP or BMI, who like to license and control music. I was trying to stay within the fair use guideline of no more than 6 seconds. I might end up paying a heavy fine, or
One through a party in the county jail.
maybe I can replace the drummer boy from Illinois.